President-elect Donald Trump has laid America's territorial claims over Canada, Greenland and Panama Canal, the first in over 75 years that the US will seek to acquire new territories if Trump maintains his position after taking office on the 20th of January. He's also announced his intent to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. In demanding Greenland, Trump has cited American national security and Chinese and Russian activity in the region as a basis for his claim on the day that his son Donald Trump Jr. and Sergio Gor traveled to Greenland to project local support for America. In the case of Panama Canal, he cited national security, economic security and Chinese control of the canal as a reason. With regards to Canada, he cited America's military protection of Canada and economic support as a reason. While Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has put forth a bold retort, saying that Greenland is not for sale. Meanwhile, Panama's president has said that the canal's sovereignty is also non-negotiable. The question that arises is what will happen after Trump takes office? Are his claims serious or a bluff? Joining us live at this point is Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, former diplomat. We also have Rupinder Sachdev, international affairs expert, live with us. Pathikrit Pine, international affairs expert, is also joining us live. Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, is with us as well. Joyita, let me draw you in here first. Big statements being made by President-elect Trump before he's even come into office. What can be read into these plans of his for other countries? In fact, he's also, apart from Panama and Greenland, made a big statement on Canada.
Well, first of all, I think to a large extent this statement on Canada in particular, you know, it was made in jest, and he is basically, because you see, he's still not the president of the US. He can get away by saying anything. If he says these things, particularly about Canada, once he becomes president, then I think we should sit up and take note. Right now, let us take it as a joke. He is on a roll. He is just saying whatever he feels like. I mean, it's absurd to even think that, you know, Canada will give up its sovereignty and decide to merge with the US, and also it's frankly absurd. But yes, the Greenland bit is, I think, a possibility because these people themselves are very keen to join hands with the US, and I think Trump's son has just landed, I think yesterday he landed in Greenland. So perhaps something might be cooking there, but I would be very interested to see how, you know, I think Denmark is the country that is in control of, I mean, but just imagine Trump coming and asking that I need the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and we say yes, yes, Mr. Trump, we will hand you over on a platter. I mean, what happens to national sovereignty and all? But I think he will. You see, when you are talking about naming the places, you know, Panama Canal, and we are going to call it whatever, Gulf of Mexico, we are going to rename and all. These things happen already. Because you see, say for example, Persian Gulf, if you talk to people over there, I mean, people in the Arab world in particular, they do not call Persian Gulf, they call it the Arabian Gulf. Okay, they have got major problems about, you know, calling it Persian Gulf. So yes, I mean, names are fine, but except for Greenland, I don't see the rest of it happening. But at the same time, the reaction of the Canadians is rather amusing, the political class in particular. Because you see, if you see X today, both Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, past and future Prime Minister, they are kind of tied themselves up in, they have, you know, they are talking about we are not the US, we are not the US. Of course, you are not the US. Everybody knows you are not the US. But to, you know, work themselves up in such a manner, you see, trying to prove that you are a sovereign country. The first question, in fact, I asked on X was that I think, you know, the Khalistanis and the Chinese now have serious competition from Donald Trump about who actually owns Canada, because now there are 3 contenders.
Yes. Okay, let me in fact quickly take that across to beg your pardon, to Pathikrit Pine as well. Pathikrit Pine, now the fact of course very clearly is that there is going to be a lot of ambitious plans under Donald Trump. It's a very well chosen team that he's assembled together, and before the inauguration, before the swearing in, these big statements already coming in. Are we getting some direction of which way the US is going to head post the Trump takeover, or are these statements to be taken with a pinch of salt as well?
Uday, first and foremost, I believe there is always a method in every madness. And if you look at what Trump is saying right now, it might suddenly look very, what is he trying to talk about? But if United States today is talking about taking over Canada, it is not that suddenly they have love for the people of Canada. It is primarily because of the access to the Arctic Circle. I think Trump is more smart than Biden. Biden wanted to, if you look at the reasons for the war between Russia and Ukraine, if they eventually wanted a regime change in Russia, then they actually wanted access to the Arctic region because it has huge repository of oil and gas. So taking over Canada, if they actually want to do that, is primarily to get the sovereign rights over the region where new shipping routes are opening up because of the melting of ice. And if you look at the countries which have access to the Arctic or have sovereign rights over the Arctic, one is Greenland, the other is Russia, the third is Canada, a bit of Alaska, and the fifth is Norway. Now, let me tell you very frankly, Canada de facto behaves like the 51st state of United States. It doesn't even have an external intelligence agency. If you go to southern Canada, many of these provinces like Alberta, British Columbia, from there you can literally go to United States, work and come back. It is like the relation you have with India has with Nepal. I'm not trying to create an equivalence, but if tomorrow, why do you think the Canadian politicians are feeling jittery and responding that no, we will not be part of United States? The jitter comes from the fact that if tomorrow seriously Trump administration tells to Canada that boss, you have two options: either live the rest of your life with the 25% tariff or become a US citizen. You tell me, if there is a referendum tomorrow in Canada, how many Canadians will say that I am better off as a Canadian than being an American citizen? It is a matter of question mark. I am not saying all will vote for the United States, but I think even the Canadian government is not very sure which way voting will happen. So I reiterate, there is a method in the madness, and you would see there is a global reset of MAC which might happen in many places. If you see United States taking over Canada or talking about it, be rest assured that Russia will also take part of Ukraine, and we don't know what will be the deal between China and Taiwan and what Trump will agree for. But fundamentally, I don't think that it is loose talk by Trump. You must remember, every time he said something, he actually pursued it. And I don't think it is something that he suddenly talked about. They have actually had homework on it for a long period of time. So you see what happens. How it benefits us or not, that's another issue. But you really believe that Americans will, a president who is going to take over on 20th will just make loose talks like that? I don't think so. So I think what happens, we don't know. But I reiterate, there is a method in the madness. If it is for the Arctic Circle, ultimately he wants northern Canada, but he can't take northern Canada by disowning southern part. So invariably he is giving this bait. Nobody knows how to explore and exploit the Arctic resources better than United States. Canada doesn't know how to do it. And so if they have to compete with Russia, which has 19 operational bases in that Arctic region, vis-a-vis America not having even one, Canada doesn't even have people to explore it. And that's why Trump has always feared two hoots about climate change, because he is looking for that. If Trump is transactional, then this is the transaction that he would do with Canada. At least he would give this offer: live the rest of the life with the 25% tariff, which will in any case make the Canadian economy collapse, or else be part of United States. How many Canadians can refuse that offer, especially the white Canadians? Well, the jury is still out on that. Back to you.
Okay, let me in fact quickly take that across to Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor as well. Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, at the end of the day, these big plans by the United States for their neighbors, will any of them fructify? Will they see fruition, or are these, of course, is this mere posturing happening before the inauguration, before the presidency begins?
Thank you, Uday. I think we are talking about four different issues here. One is, taking over Canada and making it the 51st state of USA, and the Prime Minister of Canada as a governor of a state of USA. The second thing we're talking about is about Greenland, taking over Greenland. The third is about Panama Canal, and the fourth is about renaming of Gulf of Mexico as Gulf of America. Now, in my opinion, the first two are going to be, well nigh impossible to take over Canada and make it a 51st state of USA. or take over Greenland. It's going to be very difficult. In the sense, there may be some other sort of format which they may agree to with Denmark, for example, for Greenland, and some sort of via media with Canada to make it more secure, because the US is saying a few things like the illegal immigration coming from Canada, the illegal drugs coming from Canada, because Canada has become host to forces from inimical forces to America, including China, for example, which has police stations inside Canada, etc., and all the fentanyl drugs which are coming in through Mexico, the illegal immigrants, the trafficking going on the Canada border. So those are very serious concerns, including geostrategic and geopolitical concerns. So it's not only the northern aspect which Patikrit referred to in terms of the access to Arctic resources, but also the border with the US. But to take over a sovereign country in this day and age is not easy at all. There have been instances in the past where the US has done that. For example, it took over Alaska from Russia and paid, I think, about $12 at that time for the whole of the state of Alaska. Similarly, they have taken over large tracts of land from Mexico, including California, New Mexico, Florida, Texas, etc. So they have been on an acquisition spree, but this was about almost 200 years back, 150 years back, 100 years back. I don't think they have acquired any big sort of provinces or regions or territories in the last many decades. About renaming of the Gulf of Mexico into Gulf of America, well, let us look at some parallels. Here it was called, Indochina and Asia Pacific, for example, the region around India. And the Americans were the first ones who started calling it Indo-Pacific. And now that word has gained so much currency that a vast majority of the analysts and the strategic thinkers and writers have started calling it the Indo-Pacific. So that could happen with the Gulf of Mexico being renamed as the Gulf of America. About Panama Canal, again, there may be some more accommodation and agreement, because currently what I understand is that Chinese companies control they have a very big shareholding and they control a major part of the Panama Canal. That may have to give way to American control and American sort of participation with the government of Panama. But I don't think they will revert it back to the state where America makes all the decisions, but it may be sort of a collaborative governance model between the US and Panama. So, when Trump starts speaking, partly the aspect of Greenland and Canada will be dealt with in a different way as we go along, and they may also be sort of distraction issues of distraction, while his main focus is on other aspects like the tariffs that he's going to impose, the Ukraine-Russia war, how that has to end, the Israel-Gaza situation. So while the major focus and energies in international politics will be on those aspects, these will continue in the popular discourse for quite some time without much coming out of it in terms of particularly the aspect of taking over Canada or taking over Greenland, except in terms of making separate agreements on these areas which I've said before. Back to you, Uday.
All right, let me in fact take that to Robinder Sachdev as well, international affairs expert. Robinder, it seems that President Trump wants to redraw the map of the United States of America. Will this be feasible? Will this be possible? Will this be practical? Are these just, claims that are being made before he actually takes over, which possibly will not see results, or could they?
Well, thank you so much. Well, looking at what he does, what he says, and how he acts, we could see some movement on maybe all four of these vectors, once in a while, etc. How much it kind of accelerates, we do not know. And what could be the, not the response, but yeah, let's say the response from each of these countries mentioned would be also important to see. Couple of things overall. I think what America is signaling that it wants no interference in the hemisphere, okay, the North and South of America, Gulf of Mexico, Panama, etc. Trump and America in a way is signaling that. That is one. In a big picture, that we do not want China and Russia. I mean, Russia is now obviously, shrinking, but China establishing more inroads, though it's difficult. I mean, in Latin America, China has made huge inroads, but still Trump is kind of, looking at that. That's one. Secondly, yes, I mean, on the one hand, he could end up, doubling America's territory. Who knows? I mean, see, when he says America first, okay, so even if even if America absorbs Canada, it will be America first, but a bigger America, more territory. Greenland, even more territory, if that, fructifies, but chances are less, and there are systemic features and reasons. Yeah, sure, in Canada, if there was a referendum to be, what this will do is, it'll kind of, it has created a rhetoric, it has created a debate, it has created a discussion. And in any country, you will find at least, I think, 10-20% people who would take any point of view. And in general, in Canada, so therefore, there would be, a good chunk of people, especially on the right, conservatives, right, who could be saying, why not America? But they will run into a disconnect in the sense that there are some features of Canada and Canadian society which I think Canadians will never want to give up. For example, the healthcare. Canada is a welfare state and driven by, public goods and public services much more than the US. US looks at things as the market, as a market economy, right? So that will be one disconnect between Canadian and the US. The Greenlands, we don't know. Actually, the Greenlands, Denmark funds them to the tune of, I think, about $500 million every year under a certain agreement. And it has only 60,000 people. Given all your, Twitter, social media, marketing strategies, how difficult would it be to kind of brain propaganda-wise, persuade Greenlanders to go in for a referendum and vote 2/3 for a union with America? If not a union, it could be some other mechanism. The US has several different mechanisms, like the Marshall Islands. There are different degrees of, association or incorporation or the American umbrella. So it could head there, and as all of us are saying and realizing, all of these territories, Canada, the Arctic Circle, Greenland, are obviously sitting on oil and gas. They're also sitting on rare earth and minerals and metals. And as the climate change progresses, it seems to be, I think in the last 10 years, about 30% shipping routes have increased in the Arctic Circle. Because as the ice is melting, more shipping opens up. So in the last 10 years, about 37%, if I'm not mistaken, has been the increase in shipping. So all of that combined does definitely give, and plus, strategic security bases and all. So, it sounds a pretty decent deal if you're America looking out for your interests. Lastly, I will say, not lastly, maybe one point, a little of concern which I've had, since long about Bangladesh. See, Bangladesh is in a mess right now, right? And if there is credence to the fact that American deep state, quote unquote, and by the way, American deep state, I don't think is, left or right. American deep state is American intelligence, what they want for America, right? So if American intelligence so badly wanted St. Martin's Island that they overthrew Sheikh Hasina and pushed Bangladesh into Chinese arms, then, Yunus can make a decent deal. Yunus can say to Trump, what, bail me out, set me a package of a few $1 billion, and here, take St. Martin's Island. So that is perhaps the world that we are, we could be looking at and dealing in. Not to say that everything is as he has said. Things take time and things are complicated and they can be unknown, outcomes unknown, which we don't know. But that is what it seems to be out here. As far as Gulf of Mexico is concerned, I think again the idea would be, America could rename it. There'll be some issues with regard to some international agreements, the UN, laws of the seas, etc. But who cares for that once America is hell-bent?
Right.
The only thing will be, it will be seen as American imperialism expanding in South of America.
Right. If it sees the light of day, of course. Let me go back to Bashwati Mukherjee once again. Now, Ambassador beg your pardon. Let me go back across, of course, to Ambassador Ravinder Sachdev, who of course is with us as well. Ambassador Ravinder Sachdev, as far as of course the nationalism also point is concerned, do you believe that this is a nationalism tool that is being used by President Trump as well? At the end of the day, of course, trying to exert this imperialistic statements. Do you believe this is also a way of getting the the frenzy in his countrymen and particularly his supporters ahead of his inauguration, ahead of that big January 20th day?
Uday, I think it will be a distraction for not only the supporters, not only the people who are Republicans, but for the world also, while he gets going on his more serious agenda items, because they can continue this narrative and the discussion, and for the people who want to make America great again, for them these are very great stories to say that, okay, America is going to take over Canada, America is going to take over Greenland. So whether it happens or not, but these are stories which will feed a lot of oxygen into those groups, and supporters. So they will continue the discussions, continue the narrative, and keep on getting excited by that. And whether it comes to fruition or not does not matter, in the sense that they can continue focusing on that while the Trump team gets going with their main agenda items.
Okay. Yes, Joyita, come back in here, of course, now also on, what all of this is indicating on the Trump presidency. Do we, are we getting hints of what Donald Trump is going to be like when he, takes charge, when he comes into office through these statements?
Well, first of all, I agree that this is actually a message to his base. More than, it's a message to his base, because these are the, see how active I am, it is America first, and also, so that message is going out. If you track the discourse that is developing on X, the social media, that is one place where you get to know who is saying what, and they are all very excited about it, the Americans in particular, the MAGA base, if we can call it. Whether the anti-Trump Republicans are excited about it or not, I have got my doubts about it. So there will be opposition from within the administration, and frankly, again, I'm going to say this Canada thing is not going to work. But at the same time, if you look at it in terms of
particularly it's the Canada photo, interestingly, that's got the most traction, the one that has him with the Canada flag in the background. Yes,
obviously, because look at the size of Canada. Although half of it, I would 80% of it is barren. Or so the fact of the matter is, look at the land size, and let's not forget, when you're looking at Canada and the US, Canada is the seat. You see, I was not joking when I said, the Khalistanis and the Chinese have started to control Canada. It is the country that kind of serves as the gateway not only to narcotics, the fentanyl crisis that we are talking about, fentanyl, illegal immigration, a whole lot of things. So what has happened is, you see, and because of the policies of Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau and all, who are basically very close to China and all, what has happened is that China has got an outpost in Canada to basically spy on the US. It's a listening post about what is going on in the US. So if you are looking at it from that angle, it makes perfect sense for Trump to say what he is saying, but whether he is actually going to do it or not, well, I have got my doubts about it. And even when you are looking at Greenland, the US, purely because of, again, China is now going into the Arctic Circle, that the north of Russia, they have started sending their ships and all. It makes perfect sense for Trump to basically talk about taking over Greenland, and we have to see. But then you see, people say one thing, and whether it actually materializes or not, there is a huge gap in between. So we will not know until and unless he becomes president. We do not know anything how this presidency will shape up. But yes, there will be opposition to him also from certain sections inside his own party, apart from the Democrats and all. This could also be a diversionary tactics by him.
Okay, let me quickly now take that back across to Pathikrit for a last statement, last word, Pathikrit, on the way ahead now, on what we're expecting in the next, about 12 days before the presidency, before the inauguration.
Well, 12 days before the, swearing in, I am more concerned about what Biden administration will do to create problems across the world, because they have tried enough in the last 2 months. So I'm not concerned much about what Trump is trying to do, because Trump, what he is doing right now is to set things in motion. There will be debates for the next 1 or 2 years about whether Canada will come or not. And in case of Greenland, if he gives $20 billion a year, Greenland cannot refuse. All I'm saying is this: these constructs of expansionism, imperialism, these are theories which are written by political scientists who are on the winning side. Tomorrow, Trump does a bloodless coup and takes over something, it will be considered as a great victory. Look, this is how you unite to create a greater world, and that's how theories are made. So I don't think too much will be rattled, because the world is already rattled, and it might create so much patriotism and nationalism within the United States that many of the difficult work that he wants to do, whether he does it or not, I don't know, he wants to do, people will be okay with it so long they have Canada in their fold. It's typically the concept of Lebensraum. I'm not saying the Americans require more land, but resource is something that Americans have always been obsessed with. So let's not presume that it's all just talks. Trump at the end of the day is a businessman. He has done a lot of big deals as a businessman, so he knows how he approaches. Let's see how it works out, but I don't think that he was doing any loose talk.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.